In the summer of 2013, a contractor was working his way through one of the worst houses he had ever been hired to clear. The man who had lived there was dead. He had been a hoarder, and the home was packed, in places floor to ceiling, with the accumulated debris of decades. Room by room, the crew hauled it all out into the light. And down in the basement, behind the clutter, the contractor noticed something that did not make sense. A section of wall that did not belong. A wall that had been built in front of another wall, sealing off a small, hidden space. When he broke through it, he found a large plastic container. And sealed inside that container, wrapped away from the world, were human remains. The bones of a person, hidden in this basement, the hands bound with rope. For the contractor, it must have been the moment an ordinary, if unpleasant job turned into something out of a nightmare. You are hired to haul away a dead man's clutter, and instead, you find a human being, deliberately hidden, deliberately sealed away, in a space that had been built so that no one would ever stumble across it. The work stopped. The police were called, and what had looked like the sad, cluttered end of one lonely old man's life suddenly became the final chapter of a mystery nearly 3 decades old. The dead man who had owned the house could not answer for what was found in his wall, but the police could soon give those remains a name, because this was not a stranger. This was a woman who had been missing and searched for and quietly waited for 28 years. To confirm who she was, investigators turned to one of the few things that can still speak for the long dead: dental records. And those records settled it. The remains sealed inside that basement wall belonged to JoAnn Nichols, the very woman who had been reported missing from that very house 28 years earlier. In a single moment, a missing person case that had stayed open for nearly 3 decades stopped being a missing person case at all. It became a murder. And the most disturbing part of this entire story is not that it took so long to find her. It is that, almost from the very beginning, the police had a strong idea of exactly what had happened to her. They simply could never prove it. And the one man who held the proof had sealed it into a basement wall and then lived on top of that secret, calmly, for the rest of his natural life. Let us go back to who JoAnn was. JoAnn Nichols was 55 years old. She was a first-grade teacher, the kind of woman who spent her days with small children just beginning to learn to read and write. To her students and her community, she was a familiar, gentle presence. She had a life and a routine and people who expected to see her. It was December, which for a teacher of young children is one of the busiest and brightest times of the year. The decorations, the excitement of the holidays, the countdown to the winter break. JoAnn was woven into the rhythm of her community in the way that teachers so often are, known to hundreds of families, trusted with their children, part of the fabric of the place. When a person like that disappears, it is not a quiet event. It leaves a hole that a great many people feel all at once. She lived in Poughkeepsie, New York, with her husband, James Nichols. On the 21st of December, 1985, just days before Christmas, JoAnn Nichols vanished, and it was her husband, James, who reported her missing. In those first days, the response was what you would expect. There were searches, there was worry. A woman does not simply evaporate right before Christmas, and everyone wanted to believe there was still an innocent explanation waiting to be found, that she would turn up, that she would come home. But beneath all of that hope, the investigators actually working the case began, quietly, to feel a growing unease about the man at the center of it. That unease had a specific focus. It was pointed squarely at the one man closest to her, the man who had reported her missing in the first place, her husband, James Nichols. James was not a warm or open man. He was described as a loner, detached, antisocial, the sort of person who kept the world at arm's length. That alone proves nothing, of course. But then there were the details of those first days, and the details did not sit right at all. When police first came to the home after JoAnn disappeared, they noticed that her car was gone. That was a potential lead, a thread to follow. But when they returned to the house a little later, the car was simply there, back in the driveway, as though it had never been missing at all. When they asked James about it, his explanation was strange. He said he had found the car, abandoned at a shopping mall, and had arranged to have it driven back home. And there was one more thing about that car. It had been washed. It had been vacuumed, cleaned, inside and out. Think about what an investigator sees in that. A woman vanishes. Her car disappears, then reappears, freshly scrubbed and vacuumed, with a thin story attached to explain it. That is not the behavior of a bewildered, grieving husband. That is the behavior of a man erasing something. But an investigator's certainty and a prosecutor's evidence are two very different things. A washed car is deeply suspicious. It is not by itself proof of a murder. A cold, withdrawn husband is unsettling to sit across from. But being unsettling is not a crime. Everything the detectives felt in their gut about James Nichols was real, and as the years would eventually prove, it was correct. Yet a feeling does not convict anyone, and James, in his own quiet way, seemed to understand that better than they did. He handed them the suspicion almost freely. He simply never handed them the one thing that could ever turn that suspicion into a case. So the detectives suspected him. Quietly, they zeroed in on James Nichols as the person most likely responsible for whatever had happened to his wife. But suspicion is not proof. And this is the wall that so many cases of this kind slam into. Without a body, it is extraordinarily difficult to prove a murder at all. There was no crime scene the police could point to. There was no confession. There was no JoAnn, alive or dead, to tell them anything. There was only a missing woman, a strange husband, and a scrubbed car. James Nichols gave them nothing more. He did not crack. He did not confess. He simply held his silence year after year and let the absence of a body do his work for him. For the people who loved JoAnn, this became its own particular cruelty. Somewhere nearby lived a man that many quietly believed had killed her, walking free, going about his ordinary life, while they were left with nothing at all. No grave to visit, no certainty, not even the grim finality of knowing for sure that she was gone. The law could not touch him, and so they were forced to watch him simply exist, year after year, a free man wrapped in a suspicion that could never be turned into a charge. It is hard to imagine a more corrosive kind of waiting. The case stayed open. It was reviewed again and again as the years passed, but it never moved. JoAnn Nichols remained on paper a missing person, a woman who had walked out of her life one December day and never been seen again. And the man the police believed had killed her went on living, just a few miles from where they kept her file, carrying his secret with him everywhere he went. What none of them knew was that the answer they had been unable to find was not miles away or in another state or at the bottom of a river. It was in his basement. It had been there the whole time. Because JoAnn Nichols had never left that house. She had been killed by a blow to the head, a blunt force injury that shattered part of her skull. Her body had been bound, wrapped, sealed inside a container, and then walled off in the basement behind a barrier built for exactly that purpose. To hide her, to keep her from ever being found. And then James Nichols had gone on to live in that house. For 27 more years, he woke up and moved through his days and went to sleep in a home that had a tomb in its basement. His murdered wife was sealed into the wall, a short flight of stairs beneath his feet, and he lived above her, year after year, as though she were nothing at all. It is almost impossible to comprehend the coldness that requires. Most people could not spend a single night in the house where they had hidden a body, let alone build the rest of their life there. But James Nichols did exactly that for the better part of 3 decades. He let no one in. He kept the world firmly on the other side of his front door. And whether that deep isolation was part of the cause of what he did, or a consequence of having to guard what he was hiding, the result was the same. A man alone in a house with a secret, protecting it so completely that even his own death very nearly carried it into the ground with him. Over time, the house began to fill. James, always a loner, slid deeper into isolation and into hoarding. The home filled up with clutter and debris, layer upon layer, until it became the kind of place people did not enter. In a strange and terrible way, the hoarding became one more wall, one more layer of concealment piled on top of the first, burying the basement and the secret it held ever deeper out of sight. And here is where this case delivers its cruelest turn. James Nichols was never arrested. He was never charged. He was never made to sit in a courtroom or to answer a single question under oath about what happened to his wife. The police believed he was guilty. They had believed it for decades. But belief is not the same as a case you can bring, and he never gave them the one thing that could have changed that. In December of 2012, James Nichols died. He was 82 years old, and he died of natural causes. In that same house, an old man passing quietly in his own home. Whatever he had done, he took it to his grave, believing he had won. He had outlived the investigation. He had outlived the suspicion. He had kept his secret for 27 years, and he died, by any legal measure, an innocent man. It was only after his death, when neighbors had not seen him and the house finally had to be cleared, that a contractor with no idea of any of this history broke through a strange wall in the basement and set the truth free at last. Now sit with the full shape of what happened here. There's a comforting idea that most people carry about murder. The idea that the truth always comes out, that the guilty are always caught, that no one truly gets away with it. This case is a hard argument against that comfort, because James Nichols did get away with it. Not for a year, not for a decade, for the entire rest of his life. He was suspected almost immediately, and it did not matter. He simply refused to give them a body, and that refusal was enough to keep him free until old age took him gently in his sleep. What finally undid the secret was not brilliant detective work, or a deathbed confession, or a scientific breakthrough. It was something far more ordinary and far more accidental. He died, and someone came to clean the house. That is all. If he had been a tidier man, if the basement had been finished differently, if that contractor had never looked twice at an odd bit of wall, JoAnn Nichols might have stayed hidden even longer. It is a deeply unsettling thought to sit with. How many secrets like this one are still out there, right now, sealed into walls and buried beneath floors, held by people who were quietly suspected but never charged, and who fully intend to carry the truth into the grave with them? JoAnn Nichols was found by luck, by the simple accident of a cluttered house that had to be emptied after its owner died. Not every victim is granted even that much. For every case like this one that finally breaks open, there may be others, just as terrible, that never do. And yet, in the end, she was found. That matters. For 28 years, JoAnn Nichols was officially a woman who had simply disappeared, her fate an open question mark. Now, there is no question. Her family, her former students, the community that lost her, finally know the truth. She did not walk away from her life. She was taken from it, in her own home, and hidden in the dark. She was found and named, and she could at last be brought out of that basement and laid to rest as the person she was. A teacher, a wife, a woman who deserved to be looked for honestly, and who, even decades too late, was finally brought back into the light.